Hey everybody, or just me. I say everybody still. I don't know why. I'm sitting in one of my homes, as I call it, my second home. I just woke up from a little, I wouldn't call it nap, but a close eye session in the sunlight. I find that when the sunshine comes out, it's such a miraculous thing that I'm always celebrating, but it also has the tendency to leave me in a conflicted state in that I don't know. If it was raining today, I wouldn't be out here right now, obviously. I wouldn't be getting this natural sunlight, this energy, this vitamin D source. I would be inside. I'd probably be at a cafe drinking some coffee, getting some stuff done, getting some work done in a different kind of work sense, right? Which isn't, it's not to say that this isn't work, just lying out here and doing nothing. Doing nothing can be doing everything. Um, but I think your options, of course, are a bit more expansive when the sunshine is out. And for me, it's difficult to stay indoors and do the things that I, quote unquote, should do when it comes to just being responsible, setting things up, whether it's for work or whether it's for appointments, deadlines, this or that. Uh, but I still tell myself I'm going to get to that, and I try to keep in mind. I was gonna say I do my best. I don't know if I do my best, but at least I try to be aware uh, that it's okay. That what I'm doing right now is all good, because it's easy to feel a little bit overwhelmed. Speaking to where I'm at right now, exactly. I mean, I think it's the case more often than not during the weeks. I have today off. I'm on work accommodation, which is another thing to not take for granted. I have this work accommodation. I work 8 less hours, but I also get this time to just go to the arboretum and lie down, close my eyes, take my shoes and socks off, and just chill out and hear the birds, hear the conversations of people in the distance. The distant humming of cars and airplanes above, and of course the sunshine on my face, which is just a welcome sight and feeling. And yeah, but and I had a therapy appointment this morning, and I spoke to like a fight or flight response that I had after doing an interview with a radio station on Thursday about just some intense material, kind of recounting some of my history, some of my past. Um, and and when I'm in a situation like this, it's easy to, or when I'm in that situation of being in that environment, being interviewed or talking about a certain thing, it's easy for me to just, bam, get taken by it, get really impassioned by the experience that had occurred. Um, and for the next 3 hours, I was doing this interview along with my mom and just unfolding, just this kind of dishing out experiences of how I felt, what I think, um, and it didn't hit me till later on the physical like ramifications of placing myself in that vulnerable position. And I'm not sure if anyone really knows what I'm talking about, but all of a sudden, like this this weird kind of weight sensation settles in. This kind of compacting, kind of tightness going down the throat, down the chest, feeling nauseous, really feeling adrenaline kind of coursing through my veins. Whether or not it's actually adrenaline, I'm not sure. It could be another hormone. Could be a variety of things, but it felt like adrenaline, and I just had to pace. I was pacing. I had to walk back and forth and up and down and around and go outside. And at this point, it was nighttime, late at night, so um, I had to go. I would go for like a 2 hour walk, and I woke up the next day feeling all right. This is primarily due to the fact that it was the end of the work week, and I kind of had the weekend to relax and everything, and I think I don't want to overshadow the fact that maybe I have made more progress over these last few years, and my brain is a bit more adept at taking care of, at just kind of, I don't know, figuring out or reacting appropriately to something like this, the emotional kind of aftermath of recounting an experience that left me with that PTSD, complex PTSD diagnosis. And what the therapist was mentioning today, which I think I already kind of knew, I've grown to know the amygdala quite a bit, the region in the brain, kind of deeply concealed in the brain, that's like the emotional response, kind of fight or flight center. And this area activates, when you're experiencing an intense situation. Not the frontal lobe, which typically activates when you're engaged in certain endeavors or storytelling or something like that. It's the amygdala, and when it's in hyperarousal state, when you've experienced such an experience or situation, that part alone is getting triggered. So the frontal lobe isn't activated, which means you're not allowed to kind of efficiently and conducively go about, living out your experience, or treating your experience in a narrative kind of sense, like just like a story, just like anything else. Like I went shopping earlier, like I went to the park the other day, like I saw an old friend last year, and it was a wonderful experience, or it was a terrible experience. Either way, it wasn't a terrible enough experience for you to get this intense psychological, emotional, mental reaction to something a year later. Um, so I think it's a big indicator that depending on how you react to thinking about certain things or re-experiencing certain things, how your body feels, and I think it's important not to be hypercritical as well, because no matter what, I'm probably going to be feeling pretty drained after speaking to, for 3 straight hours about something that I hold near and dear to me, to the heart. I'm going to be drained no matter what, and maybe that whole coursing through the veins, that whole intense situation later on that day was, maybe it was a sign that my brain still treats, or that those certain regions of my brain still treat that experience as something that's still deeply embedded, in like kind of a distortion of reality. Like it's so intense that I'm still having these physiological reactions to something that isn't a threat anymore. It's not something that ought to alter my tracks or anything. Um, um, Rather, it's, it could be an emotional. It could just be that this is how I'm going to react to a certain situation like this, and maybe this isn't an indicator of my brain's inability, my frontal lobe's inability to correctly and accordingly filter out all the threat, and alarm that's going to the amygdala. Maybe this was just it, because I woke up the next day and I was feeling pretty all right, and I think maybe if I was still feeling like this several days later, maybe it'd be more cause of, not concern, but more cause of that kind of reality check, like, okay, shit, I still need to go through some stuff, I still need to figure some things out, which I still think I need to do regardless. Ultimately, it's I guess the moral of this little story to myself and to anyone else who ever does see this is, I don't know if there is a moral to this story. It's I guess that awareness that I was talking about, the acknowledgement of what you're feeling and how you're feeling, writing it down so you can really kind of pinpoint how you're feeling, what you're feeling, um, and that's kind of an indicator of where your body is kind of holding this kind of this turmoil, this inner kind of conflict. And for me, it's just, it's in that chest stomach area, and um, and I'm not sure if I'm not really engaging right now in practices to support those regions specifically, but I'm still engaging in activities that I think are just allowing me to be healthier on the whole, at least I think. But I still feel like I tend to have an over-analytical, semi-critical mind, and I feel like maybe I'm half-assing more than I could be, which is probably true. You know, like here I am again lying in the arboretum, and I can get down on myself for not doing enough, like I was talking about earlier, or I can just enjoy this, and for the most part, I am enjoying it. Um, but I'm also just kind of groggy, and I didn't get as much sleep as I wanted to last night, and that's something that's so easy to discount, like to disregard, like okay, I didn't get as much sleep as I wanted to, but I shouldn't be feeling this groggy. Like, why am I so tired? And I'm thinking, well, maybe it is because you didn't get those extra couple hours of sleep. Maybe because you are a little off your circadian rhythm. It's not allowing you to function at peak performance, you know. So, so I think you ought to, as I'm doing, keep thinking about these things. Keep wondering while trying to secure as much headspace as you can, uh, because it's so easy to just be so overwhelmed and conflicted with things, and that doesn't really get you anywhere. And this is why I'm such a proponent of just walking, just going for those night walks to kind of clear my head when I'm feeling most ill at ease or conflicted or trapped or claustrophobic. So yeah, I guess that's my little spiel there. Um, it's just it's a beautiful day, and I think I'm gonna leave right now, and I'm gonna go get that cup of coffee, and I am gonna open that laptop and do some do some work that I think is valuable to my to my existing, to my thriving, to my figuring things out down the road. Um, but I think there's a lot more to say regarding, you know, when you're dealing with something, when you're dealing with a diagnosis. I hesitate to say I'm actually dealing with PTSD versus dealing with maybe the elements that factor into why I was given this diagnosis. It's it is amazing how you're just expected to do whatever, and to do whatever you need to do, whatever your culture or society asks of you or expects of you. You're expected to go back to those things. Work is big, paying rent, you know, paying, just being responsible on your bills, paying your loans, all the terrible stuff that doesn't matter. You know, I mean, and maybe I'm short-sighted on this, but it just doesn't matter, you know. Like I'm indebted to the state or to this private institution that's making so much more money on me than should be just lawfully allowed. You know, it's so bogus. Yeah, stupid, stupid, stupid. Uh, yeah, it's dumb. So I think my stubborn self really wants to just say F that, you know, and really kind of kind of act on my own volition and really change it up, you know, because it becomes so obvious that if you really want to get out, like shatter that complacency that is your life, that is just like this, oh, just mulling about, or if things are seemingly pretty smooth and you're just going to your job every day, and you're enjoying that, or maybe you think you enjoy it, or it's paying the bills and it's allowing you to go on the occasional trip and you have the occasional vacation, and last but not least, it's allowing you to secure retirement savings for the future. Yeah, yeah, it's easy to just swear that off, that kind of life off completely, which, by the way, is the life I'm leading at this moment in time. It's easy to just say, man, screw that, it's so unnatural. But what is natural, right? What is um, who says working in a cube or not isn't natural or unnatural? I mean, I do, right? I mean, that's my own kind of perspective on life, but uh, I think I don't know, from a just a human kind of evolutionary standpoint. I mean, I think we've made the most leaps and bounds always by putting ourselves. I mean, I like to think of it as we're a generation of guinea pigs better preparing the next generation of guinea pigs. It's like we're always trying to sort shit out. We're always trying to sort things out and figure it out, and it seems like more often than not other people are taking one for the team for you to be better off, for you to have a medication that works, or for you to um, have a be in a certain line of work that otherwise wouldn't have existed had somebody not created a certain organization because they had the resources or they had that mentality or whatever. Um, yeah, so I think it's important in that regard. You take it back to yourself and you realize, what am I doing? What am I doing? Not necessarily for mankind, like for the betterment of mankind, but what am I doing for myself that leads to the betterment of mankind? How am I taking care of myself that does make the world a better place, kind of thing? And it does bug me, when I go into my job every day in the corporate world. It's an outlier kind of job. It's kind of non-profity, but it's still in the corporate world. I can easily tell myself that I am doing better because I'm in a kind of role that it's impacting the underserved community. But that role is going to exist no matter what. I leave, and somebody else just fills that role, and that's that. And I'm just doing something else. Um, so I think psychologically we have to have that kind of that disposition, or that kind of preset that allows us to justify what we're doing and why we're doing it. This rationality, like, oh well, this job kind of sucks, but it allows me the time to volunteer outside of work, or it allows me to yada yada yada. So there's always ways around it, but um, still straying from the path. The point here is that I find the most trying times I've been in, the most trying circumstances, the most trying, uncomfortable, uncertain elements of life have been those times that have stretched me the most, that have really kind of added more depth to my decision making, to my awareness, to my ability to kind of see things in a way I never would have seen them otherwise. And I think the simple thing to think about is like traveling. That's not really hard to do, but it's not something everyone's willing to do, or at least people aren't always willing to have the quote unquote authentic experience, right? Like, oh, I went to a resort in Jamaica. I love Jamaica. The food, the people were so amazing. Oh my God, on the beach, and oh my God, we didn't really leave the resort. We went to the village with our caravan and with other people, and we picked up some food, and we met a local, and there was a little poverty. It was pretty sad, but it seemed like they seemed happy, blah blah blah. And then you go back to your resort and everything's fine. And I say that in such a judgmental tone, and of course I do, and I am um, willfully doing that, but I'm also not really directing that toward any one person. I'm just directing that toward the lifestyle, that kind of lifestyle that's permissible, that's even kind of cherished, or kind of, yeah. It's not, to me. It's pretty unsettling. But again, getting off track here. When you actually have that experience traveling, and maybe you'll still have a profound experience in that resort, but if you go to Jamaica and you go into Kingston, and you go through the streets, you take a taxi ride, you go to a museum, or you hang out with you go to local beaches, or you go to Trenchtown, where Bob Marley's from, which is one of the kind of the grittiest, tough places to be, but it's also just a beautiful, wonderful place where, I mean, there's crime and all of that, and it's a tough situation. But when, just like anywhere else in the world, when someone from the West or wherever comes in, they want to accommodate the hell out of that person. They just want to learn. They want to know. They want to engage. They want to know what's going on. Maybe they do want a dollar. Maybe they do expect to get a little bit of money or something. But as you'd expect, right? And yeah, so, and who cares? But regardless, you're you're putting yourself in a precarious situation that maybe you're not completely comfortable with, or maybe you are comfortable with. Maybe you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's the name of the game: being comfortable with being uncomfortable, putting yourself out there. And that really, in my eyes, makes the world a better place. And by me working this job every single day and still kind of finding this stress and trying to do this, have that illusionary work-life balance and go traveling occasionally. To me, that's not what it's about for me. And this is my unique perspective out of 7 billion plus people, and this is how I was raised, and this is how my thoughts and my mentalities were crafted as a result of going through intense, terrible experiences mixed with beautiful, wonderful ones that involve excursions to different countries that I always made happen out of nothing, you know. And unfortunately, loan debt accrued, having done one of them. Uh, Peace Corps was another one that allowed me to be somewhere for 2 years, and just the occasional little trips that happened around then. But I implore you to exercise, to utilize that whole comfort with being uncomfortable, because there's it's just like a little toothache when you're doing okay, when you're in that complacent kind of state, when you're just you live in that condo, you're in the city or whatever, and you're just doing that daily everything, that everyday kind of thing where it's getting up, it's eating the same kind of food, it's working the same job, it's going home and watching this, binging on the same shows and repeating, and then on the weekend you do get that getaway time and you do get to go on a hike or something, and maybe that's cool. But if there is if there isn't that time of day for you to really kind of be exploring yourself, and the complicated thing is sometimes you don't even know what to explore because you haven't explored that portion of yourself yet, which is why you just got to throw yourself out there and go to wherever or try to do whatever, you know. And that means maybe not having secured reinforced income or this or that in the meantime, but also you're going to learn how to cope with these kinds of things, and you're also going to learn. And when you're in the midst of coping with these kinds of things, you're going to meet new people, you're going to try new things, you don't even know. I mean, we're so good at projecting fear into the unknown, yet we're so unaware of just the beautiful sheer possibility of what could happen, you know. um, and ultimately life is a day with a bunch of naps, so make this day count. Yeah. Okay, it's coffee time, my one coffee of the day, and it's already 4 o'clock, so a little bit on the late side. But bye, everybody. And just if you want to say bye to the landscape over here, this is my little secret spot, which isn't very secret at all because people can pass through it, but that's what I call it. If you just want to take a gander here, there it is, just a beautiful green and growth and nature just doing its amazing, wonderful, healing thing. I implore anyone to just go for a walk right now in the park if they're feeling a little bit in a rut and it's the time of day and they have that accessible to them. If that park isn't there, if you can still just go for a walk, I say go for that too. I'll leave it at that. Okay, bye bye to myself and maybe to anyone else who ever sees this.